Hey, scholars. Okay, today we're looking at Ashoka. This is the old yellow pages we used to have in San Diego, and got a restaurant, two restaurants named Ashoka in La Jolla. And if you know anything about Ashoka, you know these are Indian restaurants, okay? So, you know that if there's going to be a restaurant named after a guy, you should know who he is, okay? So, we're going to talk about Ashoka. And I've given you the edited and translated edicts of Ashoka. And I don't need you to read the introduction. Just read the edicts. They're very interesting. And I'm going to sort of talk about them a little bit here. But let me give you a little background first, all right? Here's Ashoka's famous. There's a movie, Ashoka. And notice this is like for your book. It doesn't have the SH because it is Ashoka, same guy, but there's different spellings. And basically what we want to do is start off with, India has huge influence in history, and its political history is very distinctive. I mean, who's the most famous guy you know from India? Gandhi. And he was able to overthrow the British Empire by what? Nonviolence. Wow, this is amazing. So India has a type of politics deep in it, which we want to understand and think about. Now, India itself is a sort of distinctive place. We call it South Asia. Okay, over here we have East Asia, and over here we have West Asia, right? And what happens is that we've been talking about how West Asia develops a very distinctive background to civilization, and East Asia over here is going to develop a very distinctive background to civilization too. And South Asia is going to come in and influence the East. So what we want to talk about today is Buddhism, and Buddhism becomes this sort of it's a mobile religion. It's the first great missionary religion. There's a form of Buddhism called Mahayana Buddhism, which is all about, sending out and going places. And Ashoka is involved in that founding of this Mahayana Buddhism that wants to save the world. Okay, so there's this dynamism of saving the world that's in these edicts that I want you to look for. Okay, now notice that when you learn your plate tectonics, and the South Asia is being pushed up into North Asia. So you have this Himalayan mountains here, a very distinct. This isolates India from China over here, and it also creates a situation which we're going to call, we're going to learn about this Silk Road. And this Silk Road that comes down into here and then out to here and back into China. And this is the way India is going to get involved with it, is by pushing through by land here. Now, also there's going to be a lot of, later on throughout history, lots of interaction along the coast, Ethiopia, Africa here, Somalia with this coast here, and this goes out through the Malacca Straits and can get over to China. So there's Indian Ocean gets a lot of people around, but what we're looking at, especially in the beginning, is this road up here, this very beginnings of this what's called the Silk Road. Okay, and it runs. This is Antioch down to Alexandria, and that ray there, and then out this way to Xi'an, China. Now, the way India gets involved with the Silk Road is at around this time of Ashoka. At least that's what we think, okay? So what you have is there's a pass right there. It's called the Khyber Pass. It's famous, it's one of the most famous passes in history. It's the way to get from this very isolated place here by land into Afghanistan. Okay, Pakistan is here. So you can see it here. This is Islamabad. This is Kabul. This is the way the helicopters went to assassinate Osama bin Laden. So, this is throughout history is this Khyber Pass. And that Khyber Pass is what connects South Asia by land into what's going to be this um, Silk Road, this communication way. Now, when the Silk Road is often thought as trade, and it is, but it's also ideas. And so Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Manichaeism, a whole bunch of things are going to get on this Silk Road and spread their ideas. In Afghanistan, see, this is in Afghanistan, these huge Buddha statues, you know? And this is what people look like, you know? And these were there. They were, you know, World Historic Sites. And this is what it looked like in 1963. You know, here's these guys here. But look, here's 2008. And what happened is this is the Taliban, you know, and you've heard a lot about the Taliban. The Taliban rose up and Islamic, and we're going to talk about the rise of Islamic civilization, and Islam went after the Buddhists, you know, and destroyed in Afghanistan the Buddhist statues. But for right now, all we have to recognize is that Buddhism was strong in Afghanistan. Buddhism was strong at that end of the Khyber Pass, and it indicates that there was this spreading of ideas, and that Afghanistan, which is right up, you know, Afghanistan, which is up in here, this became this very important spot for being halfway, you know, being on the Silk Road, and Kabul and Kandahar. These are places that are on this ideas moving back and forth, and civilization will be affected greatly by this pass between South Asia and the Silk Road. Okay, let's talk about Buddha. See, Buddha's from India, okay? And there's a deep history in India of ideas. Now, so Buddhism doesn't only have these ideas. Hinduism has these ideas. There's a religion called Jain. There's other religions. India has a mass of things, and it's only later, it's only modern times that we've given the name Buddhism to something. But they were ideas that were built around a guy who lived, Siddhartha Gautama, right around, 500. And this is the time that Pythagoras lives in the West. This is the time of Heraclitus in the West. This is the time of Herodotus in the West. This is the time of Darius and Cyrus. And this is the time of all sorts of stuff we've been talking about happens around 500. This is the time of Confucius in the East, and it's the time of Buddha in South Asia. And the story of Buddha is basically his search for a middle way, in which, he wants to, he's been isolated by his father, and then he gets out into the world and sees disease and death and all these things, and starts to first become an ascetic. And that's, where you sort of beat down the body so that you can focus on the mind. But he realizes that if you beat down the body, your mind doesn't work well. So there's not this extremism. You find a middle way. And so he gets under a tree, the Bodhi tree, and has these demons and stuff attacking him. This is a very, very, this is still a religion. This is not philosophy in some sort of secular sense. And so Buddha gains enlightenment. Now, his enlightenment is going to involve ancient ideas from India, ideas that are in other religions. And the most important for us is Dharma. And Dharma is the teachings. It's sort of ethical teachings, okay? And they just sort of get out there. Dharma is somewhat like the Logos for the Greeks. Logos means that we're all sort of hardwired into a logical system that we can sort of access by rational process, and sort of see how the mechanism things work. And in the Bible, Jesus is compared to the logos, and it's the grammar. It's you have a verb and a predicate and a period. Things get organized. It's an organized system, the logos. And that's what's going to empower Greek rationalism and also a lot of Christianity and a lot of Judaism, modern Judaism. Now, Dharma is, like I said, like an ethical teaching. And so this is just more of an authoritative teaching. You don't sort of analyze the Dharma by logic. See, the Logos is a sort of different way of looking at how the cosmos is organized and run. Dharma, there's these ethical teachings. Now, the Chinese, as we talked about, with Confucianism, Taoism, other things, emphasize the Tao. In the old way is spelled with a T. The Tao is a type of historical movement. It moves through history, and so if you look to the past, you can understand the way to be ethical in the future and things like that. So the Tao works sort of historically. Logos works sort of mechanically, logically, mathematically. Dharma works by a type of just authoritative. There's an emphasis on time in the Tao, and there's no emphasis on time in the Dharma. Emphasis on logical systems in Logos. There's no emphasis on logical systems with Dharma. Okay, right? Maybe it's too strong to say no emphasis. But we're going to talk about the Dharma because what Ashoka is going to try and do is live up to the Dharma. And he's going to become a Dharma emissary. And he's going to send out Dharma emissaries. And this is the kind of missionaries of Dharma. Okay. Now, ahimsa is nonviolence. And this is where Gandhi and lots of folks from India have this it's a wonderful sort of thing of nonviolence and pacifism. So nonviolence is going to get tied to a key issue of the teachings of the Dharma. And then samsara is reincarnation. That's where you're stuck being alive. And I mean it, being stuck, because what Buddha does is he looks at samsara and sees it as a trap. It's a trap that keeps us alive. And if you're alive, you're suffering. Okay? It's a very interesting thing about Buddhism. It has a very negative perspective of being alive at its very foundation, at its deep. So being alive is this trap. It's suffering. It's uneasiness. It's where things don't work out right. And it fits with Christianity in a view of sin, that there's this world of sin. It's just, deeply flawed, everything. Life is deeply flawed. Culture is deeply flawed. The world is deeply flawed. Okay, suffering is caused, this is the Four Noble Truths, this is foundational to Buddhism. Suffering is caused by desiring, okay? And what is this desiring is that we as humans try and work with this deeply flawed world. We try and control it. We try and fix it. We try and do things to it. And we try and exert power over it and things like that. And we become attached to certain things, like we become attached to joy and peace and love and beauty and in this world. And you shouldn't do that, because suffering comes because, life is flawed and it's always going to be disappointing. And so there's this deep sort of frustration about being alive and the human condition of trying to deal with being alive. And the only way to be liberated from the suffering is to stop desiring. So this is a type of syllogism. This is a type of logic here. All life is suffering. Suffering is caused by desiring. In order to be liberating from suffering, you got to end desiring. Okay? And so there's a mental discipline here, very strong mental discipline, so that you need, once you master this, you can gain enlightenment, you can gain peace, you can gain a type of salvation. And by salvation, in the Greek, in the Latin, it's the salve, which is the health. You can have a healthy view of life. You can be healthy. So the way to attain liberation of enlightenment is to follow the Eightfold Path. Now, this is number 4. So the first 3 are sort of individualistic, and the 4th is social. And with the 4th being social, we follow this Eightfold Path. And if you can see, there's this very strong ethical content of speaking well, doing good, having a vocation which doesn't harm anybody or life or other things. And then, so this is all, and all this right is Dharma. Okay, Dharma teaching, following the Dharma. So this is the political. This is where it helps civilizations. Political is Buddhism really teaches a type of good living, especially this nonviolence, don't harm people, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So Buddha's around 500 BC, and then Ashoka's 250 years BC. So we've got a lot of time, got a couple hundred years there. And what has happened is that Ashoka's grandfather has created an empire to the north here. And then Ashoka's going to expand this empire like this. And it's going to be an empire. He's in charge. He's running things and stuff like that. And then if you read the Edict 13, you're going to see that Ashoka talks about how he won this battle. And then he felt remorse because it involves so much killing. And these edicts are written on these, these either a stone or a pillar, and they're over. And so what you got in your book is these collected edicts. And this is all we know. This is all we have from Ashoka. So you've got to, when you read these edicts, you're going to be an expert in Ashoka, This is what our evidence is. But this is why we have restaurants, though, named after him, though, because these edicts indicate a good person who is trying to lead a good empire. And he actually has a sort of conversion experience, and he is, as we look at it, especially when he's creating religious facilities and stuff like that he is a Buddhist. He has committed himself to a Buddhist way of thinking. So when you read these edicts, look for nonviolence, look for sort of do unto others, do unto yourself, but mostly look for this missionary fervor to spread a type of gospel, a new gospel. And he'll use the term Dharma emissaries, Dharma, the teachings of Dharma. The emperor himself on one of these edicts, it talks about how he goes out to villages and sits with people and teaches them Dharma. And then in his own kitchens, make sure you look at what he does in his own kitchens. It's so sort of dynamic. I mean, this is a guy who is very serious about changing his life and changing his life as a model for the whole nation, the whole empire. And then he's, if you look at the footnotes, especially to the Dharma emissaries passages, he is sending these emissaries. And when we look at these emissaries, these stories, you'll see that these emissaries are getting out to, because they name names of leaders that are in Egypt and in Syria and in what is now Turkey. And so we know that he actually did send these emissaries out, and they would have gone through the Khyber Pass out to the west. And then we assume, because we know that Buddhism was on the move and his motivation is there, that we assume it also went to the east. Because Buddhism is, in our class, going to become mostly associated with China and Japan, Vietnam, Korea, places like that. So Confucianism is going to merge with Buddhism. We're not going to talk too much about South Asia in this class. We're going to get back to South Asia when the Muslims take it over later at the end of our class. But at this point here, we're not spending a lot of time with South Asia, but it is the place where Buddhism begins. And Buddhism then, with Ashoka, becomes especially mobile, probably up through that Khyber Pass and then over to China. But so you'll have questions and stuff, and especially when we get into Constantine, the emperor of the Christians, who's going to be also involved in these sort of missionary sort of things, is to compare similarities and differences between Ashoka and Constantine, compare similarities and differences between Buddhism and Confucianism. You'll read more about Buddhism in your book by Will's Mountain of Fame.